The level of knowledge and consciousness that we have built up to this point is in fact worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Like if you could save me 10 years of running around in circles for $5,000.
Okay, so last time we talked about leads, we broke down the offer, we broke down the community, the interest. Today I want to dig into sales. Sales is like a bad word for coaches. They're afraid to make sales. Yeah. You had said something a while back about basically sales and marketing being the same as coaching. And so, when we talk about sales, I kind of want you as a coach, if you're listening to this, to think of it as the same as coaching.
John Maxwell, who's obviously one of the seminal speakers and trainers in leadership, says sales, leadership, and coaching are all the same. They're used at different points in a relationship, but sales, leadership, and coaching are all the same. It's all about influencing others to, make courageous decisions.
In your model, you break this down into pricing and positioning, conversion mechanism, and frame. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's just go in that order: pricing, positioning, conversion mechanism, and frame. Before we get into that, though, I think I would love to hit on this high level, I think misconceived notion that sales is a bad thing. Like if I were to mention sales to 50 people, what's the first thing that they would say, first word association they would have if I said sales or a salesperson? What do you think?
Like a used car salesman or greasy,
or
pushy,
slick, snake oil, used car salesman, right? And that's kind of the general connotation around sales. In reality, sales is just a tool. It is a tool that can be used for good or for bad. Right? So it'll be used by good people for good things, and it'll be used by bad people for bad things. My favorite, Jay, do you know who my favorite salesperson is?
Cahal?
No, absolutely not. My favorite salesperson is Martin Luther King.
Oh, yes, you did mention this.
And if anybody has actually studied Martin Luther King's speeches, they are riddled with sales copy. It's phenomenal. Martin Luther King Jr. was literally one of the best salesmen of an entire generation. He sold literally an entire generation on an idea. And you want to know who was one of the best leaders of the 20th century? Hitler. I'm not saying a good person, terrible person, but from a leadership standpoint, he was also one of the best. So we have this misconceived understanding that leadership is good, sales is bad. Yet I just pointed out to everybody leadership can be bad when used by a bad person, and sales can be good when used by a good person. As we get into the tactics of selling your coaching programs and things like that, I think the first thing that I want everybody to understand is sales is a tool. If you're doing something that you believe is good for the world, you have a moral obligation to sell more of it. And you will sell more of it if you learn to love sales and get rid of this connotation of sales means ick or gross or whatever it means. That's the first thing that we have to work on with most of our clients is we could teach the best sales tactics and strategies and make sure that they're unpushy and they're not sleazy and all of those things. But until you learn to love sales, you will always hold yourself back on selling your programs. And as long as you hold yourself back on selling your programs, you will not get to the people that really need you.
This also really ties into that offer as well, as if you're not clear about who you're helping and what you're helping them with, then you're just trying to convince anyone to work with you, which is not...
And it's difficult.
Yeah, that's not really the point.
Oftentimes people have to resort to kind of shitty, sleazy sales tactics because the offer is not good.
Exactly.
And if the offer is good, you don't need to push people into working with you. You just need to ask them the right questions, and it becomes very obvious that they need to work with you.
I have this idea in my head, if I ever have to convince you of something, then we're going down the wrong direction. I don't want to have to convince you. Now, I can help you overcome your fear.
I can help remove shit that's kind of blinding you from the truth, but I should never be convincing or pushing anybody to anything that is not in their best interest.
It's just as important to say no to the wrong person as it is to have a sales call and enroll the right person, right? And that's part of why you even do this is you got to be able to say, no, this isn't the right fit for you.
Again, this goes back to the offer, right? An offer is based around solving a problem. If you go about this whole thing with the desire of your service or your product to solve someone's problem, you're never going to push somebody into doing something that's bad for them. You're just inviting them to solve the problem that they know they need to want to solve.
Let's kind of dig into it a little bit. We got the kind of framework of sales. We have our offer. We have some interest. How do you decide what to charge?
Oh man, this is a really good question. When I started the coaching industry, everybody was telling me like, yeah, like you like you should probably charge because you're first starting off, maybe charge $100 because $100 an hour because your mentors are charging 150 or something and you're not quite as good as them. I don't know what it was. It was always this idea of like you're selling your hours, you're selling your time. And it didn't make sense to me. I had left a cushy multiple six-figure job as an engineer at Cisco. I was living in Venice. I drove a BMW. Like I had to get to 10K fast. Otherwise, I was going to have to sell my car, move out of my place, like all of this shit. And I did the math. I'm an engineer. To get to 10K per month, if someone's paying me $100 an hour, $400 a month, that means I'm going to have 25 clients.
Yeah.
Where the shit am I going to find 25 clients? First of all, that's the first thing going on in my brain. The second thing going on in my brain is, okay, well, if that means that I'm coaching 25 hours a week. Now, I noticed I'd had conversations with other coaches that had mentioned, yeah, you spend about 2 to 3 times that amount of time on administrative and promotional stuff outside of the coaching. I was like, hold up. I then need to be working somewhere between 70 to 100 hours a week. How is any coach who's doing this making 6 figures? And the answer was nobody was.
Nobody was.
Nobody was. No, like people were making 2 to 3K per month and working 50, 60 hours a week and burning out. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. When I worked at Cisco, right, they taught me as an engineer, you're not selling a router for this much and a switch for this much. You're not selling that. You're selling a solution to their networking problem. Like when I was working at Disney, right? They were like, okay, well, we want to be able to, run all of our digital media for all of our movies that we're producing. Rather than running it over the old coax cables, we want to run it over Ethernet IP. And they're like, okay, well, how much does it cost you to run it over your coax cables? Like $100 million to build out, and it costs us like $15 million a year to run.
Wow.
Well, what if we could build you a solution that cost $30 million to build out and cost you $1 million a year to run? It was not about like all the little pieces and all the little, we were selling a solution. And if the solution was better than what they were doing before, they would be willing to pay $30 million for it. As a coach, I'm not selling my service. I'm selling a solution to one of their major life problems. Jay, we were talking yesterday, you were helping people lose weight. It's like, okay, well, like, what is the cost of like an hourly session with a PT? I don't know, $150. But what is it worth when you can lose that 50 pounds and keep it off and be able to, when you're getting on an airplane, not have to worry about whether or not your seatbelt fits, to know that you're not headed down the path of chronic illness and an early death due to heart disease? What is that worth?
It's worth a lot more than $150 an hour.
So the solution for weight loss, even though Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers try and charge $30 or $40 per month for the information, this is why we have, transformational weight loss coaches that can charge $3,000, $5,000, even $8,000 for an 8-week weight loss program. The solution is worth significantly more when you actually understand it. And that was the big thing for me. It's like, okay, well, instead of charging hourly and having to work 70 to 100 hours a week, what if I could charge $3,500? My first month was like literally 13 grand with like a handful of clients because I was charging based on the solution I was providing, not the service that I was providing.
When I started coaching, my intention was to get results. And I just picked a price that was just like, we got to charge something. I got to pay the rent on this place. Because, back then you had to actually pay rent. So I think we were charging 100 pounds or something like that, 100 pounds a month.
Yeah.
Which is, almost $0. Everyone complained that it was too expensive, but when they come in, they would get like personal training. I would give them nutrition recommendations. I would do like everything. And because they weren't paying for it, they didn't do it.
Isn't that amazing?
Even though I gave it to them for free, they just wouldn't do it. And I did that for a long time. Now our prices went up.
Yeah, but eventually you switched to the solution-based model. And what happened?
When I switched to the solution-based model, what I told them up front was, hey, at the time, I think it was 12 weeks, we're going to help you lose 15 or 20 pounds. And we're going to do whatever it takes. We've done this for a long time. At that point, I have been doing it for 10 years. I wasted 10 flipping years on this. At that point, I've been doing it for 10 years. I had 5 people sign up for it. 4 of them got the result. The other one didn't do the work. I was charging $200 a month at the time, and I think they paid something like $700 or $800 a month. And it was just like, oh, charging for the thing that you do and telling people you're going to do the thing works way better.
People who pay actually pay attention. You say you're going to get the outcome, and then you ask them to pay what it's really worth, and you get better results all of a sudden.
This is one of these things, Xander, that like, I wish I could just put this like in people's heads. It's like, first of all, if you're a coach that's not interested in getting people results, then I don't think you should be coaching.
You probably shouldn't be a coach.
Yeah.
If you just want to be someone's friend, just go be a therapist.
Careful.
I apologize to any therapists out there. That's the difference. Like therapy, you can sit there and just listen. Coaching, it's about getting a result.
And that's the thing. Like in the fitness industry, there's so many people that work 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. just doing one-on-one sessions. And it's like they spend half the time on their phone because they're really just being paid to stand there next to the client.
They're glorified therapists.
That's all they're doing. But then when you actually go and get results, if you're focused on getting results, you're asking the client for a commitment and you're giving your commitment. And if if the client says, yes, I'm in, and you say, yes, I'm all in on getting you there, then it's like they're more likely to get there because both of you are on the same page.
Let me ask you, what percentage, you said 80% got there when you upped your price and you started to charge based on the solution. What percent got there when you weren't doing that?
10% maybe.
That's crazy. Same Jay,
Yeah.
same program, same resources. The only difference was they paid more. And you charge them, you charge them based on the solution and you committed to the solution.
I even ran like free case studies where I would video people. Like I did so many things.
Well, this is
just like,
in my opinion, this is one of my biggest gripes with like the certification industry. We've had clients come from every single certification under the sun, right? And I won't call any of them out by name because they all suck. I'm just kidding. Certifications are really good at educating you on like tactics and tools in your tool belt to coach with. But any certification that I've ever seen is terrible with the business advice that they give you because they don't understand the business. They understand how to coach and help people. They don't understand actually how to get people in and work with them. And one of the worst pieces of advice I see from certifications is they say, go work with your first handful of beta clients for free, get some testimonials, get some case studies, build your confidence, and then you'll be able to charge what you're really worth. And it goes the exact opposite direction. Just understand this principle. People who pay attention. People who do not, do not. Right? So what happens is, first of all, you go try and sell your services to people for free. And in their mind, the first thing they're thinking is, why the fuck is this free? This must really suck. It is really hard to sell your program for free. And so you start to think to yourself, man, this is going to be impossible because people won't even take this for free. I thought everybody would be jumping at the bit for this, right? So now you think it's going to be really hard to sell. And then let's say you get a couple of people to bite. Maybe it's your friends, your family. They just feel sorry for you, really is what's going on. So now they start working with you. And because they have not paid, they are not committed. They no-show, they reschedule, they don't do the trainings that you ask them to do. They don't do the exercises you ask them to do, whatever it might be. And so you feel like you're pulling teeth and you feel like it's not working and then they don't get results. And so you feel like a shitty coach. So now not only do you think it's impossible to sell, but you also think you suck as a coach. This whole thing had nothing to do with you. It had to do with the fact because you did what the certification company told you to do, which was go for free clients, which literally is a recipe for disaster and to kill your mindset, right? It's like all you had to do was like learn how to position it properly, charge from the very beginning, don't do any free clients. And the people that start working with you will get results quickly and you build your confidence quickly and you'll want to raise your prices quickly.
Exactly. The other thing is it actually puts pressure on you to deliver.
Well, because you're the only person owning the results.
God, I had to go through a whole bunch of certifications to teach people fitness and that kind of thing. And so much of it was just such a waste of time. Learning the proper technique for a bicep curl is not going to help you lose 50 pounds. Even just, again, the fitness industry is a great example, but coaching industry the same. It's just like if someone comes in and they need to lose 50 pounds and you're telling them how this thing is going to hit this body part, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
And it's the same thing if someone wants to build a profitable coaching business and all I'm doing is telling you the hack to get people to respond to your stories. It's like we're just not talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
It really has to be focused on what is the result? How do we get you the result? And then let's work backwards from there.
100%, man. That's kind of the beginnings of the key for pricing and positioning. Like you need to position for a solution, not a service, and you need to charge accordingly. So, the majority of our clients that we work with, their beginning prices, first coaching programs ever are $3,000, $6,000, $8,000. For some of our clients that are working with executive, they're doing executive coaching or business coaching, it could be $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000 for their first programs ever. They need to charge what it's actually worth to keep people committed. Because when you pay Like when you commit financially, you commit energetically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of it, right? And you're really in. And that's why you end up getting a result. You end up becoming an ambassador and wanting to send more and more people to this person.
The thing that always comes up is like people hear these prices of 3, 5, 10K, whatever. And it's like, how can I charge that much? There's just this
I love this
imposter
question.
syndrome, right? Like how do you do that?
A lot of us will like compare ourselves to, like, you might be out there and you might be comparing yourself to Jay or Xander or whoever your mentor was, right? And you're like, I'm not as good as them, but you're forgetting it's not about you and it's not about how good you are compared to this person. It's what is the value of the solution you can provide. There's two things that I always tell people to kind of realize that the imposter syndrome is bullshit and that you can charge $3,000, $6,000, $8,000. Number one, from an expertise scale. Like when I first started my coaching business, one of my first mentors was Jack Canfield. Amazing guy, amazing coach. He's been in the industry for like 4 decades, right? And so when I compared myself to Jack when I was first starting off, I was like, man, like he's like a 10 out of 10, like maybe even 11 out of 10. Like he's a stellar guy. I was like, I might be like a 6. How could I ever charge, like Jack charges? First of all, I might not be able to take people to a 10, but like, if most of the people that I want to work with are at a 1 or a 2, and if I can take them from a 1 or a 2 to a 5 or a 6, that's worth 3 or 4 grand. And oh, by the way, they're not getting Jack. They're not getting to Jack doesn't do one-on-one coaching anymore. So like you have to understand, even if you can only take someone from like a 1 or a 2 to a 5 or a 6, that's worth thousands of dollars. Another way of looking at it is, Jay, I'll ask you this, like what would I have to pay you to unlearn everything you've learned?
I mean, it's millions of dollars.
Let's go back to when you first started your coaching business. Like what would I have to pay, even because like you had spent years kind of learning, at that point, what would I have to pay you to unlearn everything you learned, even as a brand new coach?
I mean, a ton.
Still hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, right? Yeah. And I think we forget like the level of knowledge and consciousness that we have built up to this point is in fact worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And when someone's hiring you as a coach, they're literally time collapsing. Right? You may have spent years or even decades developing your expertise. You're taking that expertise, that lived wisdom, that experience, and you're condensing it into a couple of months, 2 or 3 months or something. Oh my God. Like if you could save me 10 years of running around in circles for 5 grand, let's do it. That's one of the biggest things that prevent people from thinking what they can charge. And then the second thing is, honestly, they just don't know how to sell it, right? Like, and this kind of takes us into the next one, which is the conversion mechanism, right? Most people think, oh, I can't charge that much. Like if I just went out to the world and tried to charge $5,000 right now, it wouldn't work. Well, of course not. Like if I gave you a nail and said, hammer it into that wall, but didn't give you a hammer, you'd go, I can't. And you'd be correct. You need the hammer. But once you have the hammer, it's totally fine. So once you have a conversion mechanism, a sales script, or something that you can actually use and leverage, a system that can consistently enroll $3,000, $5,000, $8,000 clients, right? That belief is now obsolete.
What is the simplest conversion mechanism that a coach can start with?
It's a sales script. Without question. The less volume you have, the more you have to focus on intimacy and the more you have to focus on connection and real relationships. So a one-on-one conversation, whether it's over phone or over Zoom, is by far the simplest way to convert someone into your coaching programs. In the history of coaching, there has been things like landing pages, right? Like a long-form sales page where you fill out a long-form sales page and people read it and they buy your ebook or your coaching course or your coaching program or whatever, your mastermind or something like that. So there's landing pages, there's VSLs, so video sales letters. It's basically a video version of a landing page. There's like webinars where you can do a webinar and pitch people on your stuff. You can sell people via like text message or like DM conversations. And then there's a sales conversation. There's different levels of these conversion mechanisms. Now, what we've found is for starting coaches, the highest level of conversion you can get, meaning the smaller your community, if you want to enroll the highest percentage of them into your coaching, it's a call, phone call or a Zoom call. If you have a big audience, if you have a massive following, you can convert with other means. You can convert with a landing page or a document but the numbers are, if you're going to need to take 10,000 people to get 2 to 3 versus taking 50 people to get 2 to 3.
I want to emphasize the word script. One of the things I learned early on is find something that works that someone else has done and copy it.
Yeah.
If it works, then you just want to follow their playbook. So, when I, in 2020, when I started working with you, I don't know if you knew this, but I think I downloaded the script from the website and I was able to sign up clients like immediately just with that, mostly because it was an organized way of kind of structuring thing. How did you come up with that script?
So we now call it the Perfect Consultation Script. We're now on our third iteration of it, the Perfect Consultation 3.0, over the last 7 years. We actually ran some numbers and looked back. It's been used to sell over $200 million worth of high ticket coaching in the industry. It all, honestly, it stemmed from the psychology behind all of it stemmed from my work at Cisco. When I was at Cisco, I was an engineer, I was a systems engineer. I wasn't a salesperson, but I was the only engineer on our team on the West Coast. So I had to play a dual role. They actually gave me a sales quota. And I approached it with this exact same mentality we're talking about right now, which is essentially like, I was not a salesperson. I was an engineer, and my job as an engineer was to find the problem that my clients had, whether it was Disney or Facebook or NBC or Sony or LinkedIn or whatever. I had to find the problem they had, and I had to create a solution for it. And when I did that, when I created the solution for it, I would propose them my solution, and we would figure out a way for it to work for them and pay for it and move forward, right? And that was the basics of the sales mechanism, right? Our Perfect Consultation technically has like 12 steps, right? But if I were to break it down into the basics, the first step is it has nothing to do with the conversation. It's actually how you approach the conversation. And for me, when I'm doing this B2B, when I'm doing this business to business, this is happening on a large scale. The timelines are 6, 8, 12 months long
time.
I'm having conversations with multiple like influencers and decision makers, but the general line was always the same. It started off with the intention of how I approached it. I did not approach it with any intention to sell anybody. I approached it with the intention of solving a problem. Brian Tracy has a famous quote. He says, if you approach sales with the intention of solving someone's problem, it'll never feel like sales. I remember my first meeting with the Disney CIO. She was known for being like a total hard ass. She had actually kicked out 2 account managers over the last year before that. And I was the only one left. I was like a 27-year-old engineer. So this nerdy kid with his polo walks in with his backpack. Like, luckily I didn't wear glasses. Otherwise it would have been like terrible, right? And so I walk in and I sit in the back of the CIO's meeting. And she goes, great, Cisco's here. What are you going to sell me today? And I was like, clutching my backpack, like nervous as hell. Like, I don't know. She's like, well, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, I don't know. It's like, why is this person yelling at me? and she just goes, well, why are you here? She's like, honestly, I kind of wanted to just hear what you guys are going through. If you have any problems that I might be able to help with or solve, I guess let me know. And she was like, yeah, take a seat. She emailed my director and was like, I think we'll keep this one around. Because I had no intention of selling them anything. I remember we had an RFQ come out, and like I'd built a really good relationship with my partners within Disney, and like one of our competitors came out with like a $10 million bid, and ours came out to 15 million. And I wasn't even confident in the solution. And so they asked me like, what would you do to make Cisco more competitive? And I was like, honestly, I don't think we're the right choice for you. I told them not to buy us for a $15 million bid. I wanted to solve a problem. If they spent $15 million with us and it wasn't the right thing, my ass would be chewed. And what ended up happening is over the next 2 years, we built out a system that they ended up buying an $80 million system from us because they trusted everything that I had to say. Because I was willing to turn down $15 million because it was not the right choice. It was this intention of actually wanting to solve a problem, not just make a sale. That's number one. Number two.
Can I just drill into that a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
In your life, how many people, you could probably count it on 1 or 2 hands, have ever actually sat down and said, I just want to know what your biggest problem is? It almost never happens.
It doesn't happen.
If you just approach it with that mentality, not trying to sell anything, but just like, what are you struggling with right now? And if you can honestly help them, then you help them. And if you can't, then you be honest about that too.
That's actually the third most important piece. The next piece is building rapport and building a relationship, right? So when I'm doing this B2B, I had to build relationships with the engineers, the business development managers, the director, the C-level exec. I had to build relationships with everybody because everybody had to trust me. Now, the big mistake that people make with this from a sales standpoint is like, if you're on a sales call and you're trying to build rapport, some people spend like 10 minutes trying, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And like, where it's like, dude, people are busy. You don't build rapport by asking what flavor of ice cream they like. You don't build rapport by talking about the weather. You build rapport, to your point, Jay, which is what you actually skip straight into step 3, which is getting really curious on their problem and their current situation and where they want to get to. I call this the gap, where they are now and where they want to be. And if you ask truly curious, genuine questions, concerned questions to really understand where they are, how they got here, and where they want to get to, and what obstacles are in the way of getting there. This would be kind of the discovery side of any sales conversation. Now, for me at Cisco, this could take 8 months. For your coaching business, this should take 15 minutes. But it's just getting curious and genuinely asking those questions to really open them up. And that creates the awareness, like we talked about. When you can explain someone's problem better than they can, or you can ask them the questions that create awareness of problem better than they can, they automatically assume that you can help them solve it. From there, we can actually get to positioning ourselves as the solution and closing the sale.
Yeah.
Those are the fundamental steps in a sales call. Now, we break it down a little bit more dynamically than that into like 12 individual steps, because there's some intricacies there, especially in the coaching space, that are really important. But that's the high level fundamentals of it.
That's why you need a script. If you can expose the problem and it's like amazing, great. But if you don't know how to, how to
transition into your actual solution,
yeah. I always was super curious about people's problems, because I find that the way people solve problems is really interesting. But not having all of the next steps, it meant that, I would just be like, well, maybe I can help you. I don't know. I want to move into the last part of the sales, which is actually my favorite part.
The last thing that I want to say there, I really want to emphasize what you said about having a script and a framework, because I think most coaches try to sell by flying by the seat of their pants, and it's different every time they get on the phone. We have found that like the clients that just take off are the ones that like we build a custom like 8 to 10 page script with everybody that we work with, but the clients that really take off are the ones that actually just like follow it. Like some of them might even just like read it like a robot, but they sell because the script does the work. Having something that you can consistently deliver every single time so that it doesn't take a ton of energy from you, and you're walking people through the right steps. It's like a combination lock. If you hit, if it's 6 or 7 numbers that you have to hit and you hit each one in sequence, all of a sudden the lock opens and you get to the end and you say, my program's $5,000. They say, great, where do I sign?
And if they don't say it, then, oh, did I miss some part of it? Okay.
What part did I mess up here? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's just kind of, for me, reemphasizing the value in the script. And I'm thinking about all these sales conversations that, I'm on the other end of, or that I observe. And it's just like, people are just like, yeah, we have this feature and that feature and this and that. And it just like, there's no cohesion to it. And that's why their business sucks.
I remember, I think it's Dan Sullivan says the absolute best lead generation tactic is a really solid sales conversion mechanism. Because if you have a really solid sales conversion mechanism, you might need 90% less leads.
If every person you talk to signs up, then you don't need that many people.
I don't need that many people.
I want to dig into the last piece here because, I think they're all important. This one, I think, changed the way that I looked at things. And part of it was when we started working together, you're like, oh, you have a really strong frame. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So what is the frame, and why is that critical in sales conversations?
A frame by definition is kind of your perspective and your belief and your approach. Everybody walking into any conversation has a frame. It's a collection of beliefs and perspectives and things like that. And two people that have a conversation tend to have different frames. And when they have a conversation, they connect together. More often than not, one frame will absorb the other frame. And so when we're talking about a sales frame, it's specifically your perspective and how you think and your beliefs in terms of walking into these conversations, right? So one of the basic frames that I kind of mentioned is like, first of all, learning to love sales. When I first started coaching, I was terrified of sales, right? Because I was an engineer. I had a sales quota, but I was not a salesperson. One of the first frames I had to develop was like, I love selling. It's an opportunity to coach this person into action, and they haven't even paid me yet. And there was a collection of beliefs that I had to believe that when I came into a conversation, it helped somebody else believe the same. Grant Cardone talks about, sales is really just a transfer of beliefs. If I believe that I'm helping this person, and I believe that what we're doing is good, and I believe that I can help them get a result, and I believe that what I'm doing is worth every damn penny, And I believe that with the core of everything that I'm doing, everything in my energy believes that deeply. It's going to be very, very hard for the person on the other side of the phone or Zoom call not to feel the same.
Was there like a turning point in your early on in your sales career where you're just like, oh, okay, like now I feel confident in leading a sales call? Was there?
I can tell you there was a point when it didn't. There's a lot of points when it didn't. Honestly, the first thing that's coming up for me when I first started, I learned some sales tactics, but I wasn't confident with them and I didn't like using them because I felt like sales was pushy and sleazy and salesy. And then very close to when I first started my business, my best friend AJ committed suicide. And this was one of the hardest things that I've ever been through. I was in the middle of launching my coaching business. And here, like at this point, I had learned deep psychosomatic work. I had worked with people with trauma, with PTSD, with suicidal tendencies. And here I was as this coach who couldn't help my best friend. And it created so much fear, so much guilt, so much hesitancy around everything that I was doing. I knew it wasn't true, but I had this deep belief that anybody who hired me, I would cause to kill themselves. Like it was literally like, well, what if this person pays me money and then I can't get through to them and then they end up killing themselves? Like these are the fears that were going on subconsciously. Logically, I knew they weren't true, but it didn't matter. And I remember having a mentor just tell me, he's like, Xander, what you're doing, the world needs. I just need you to figure out how to remember that right now, no matter what's going on. So I had learned a lot of obviously like how the subconscious works, psychosomatics, and the subconscious suggestion was like a basic one. It was like, okay, well, I just need to keep telling myself something over and over again until my subconscious starts to believe it. And I use this tactic. I wrote down some like bullet point beliefs that I would read every single day. Like, I love sales calls. It's an opportunity to coach someone and they haven't even paid me yet. I love objection handling. Again, this is just an opportunity to coach someone through their fears and help them take intentional action in their life. Without me, they will stay stuck in the pain that they're in right now. Then they will never change. But with me, I will evoke change in them.
So this was like a daily practice you were doing before you get on these calls. You were
every day, multiple times a day, right? Because like my mindset was in the shitter at that point. And one of my favorite ones that I ever remembered, or that I ever wrote down, and I still remind myself of this to the day, right? It goes, I must get over my fears to help this person because it's not about me. It never was, and it never will be. And when every time I reminded myself that it's not about me. It doesn't matter if you're scared shitless. It doesn't matter if you're feeling like crap. It doesn't matter if you have these illogical fears that you can't help this person, because I knew logically that I could. It did not matter because there was someone else on the other side of this phone that needed me. And if I did not show up at a 10 out of 10, they were most likely not going to move forward and change their life. They needed me to, I never wanted to be that person, right? Because if law of the lid from John Maxwell, if you show up at a 10 out of 10, the highest they can show up is an 8 or a 9. So if I'm showing up on that call at a 7, they're most likely showing up at a 4 and they're not moving forward. I never wanted to be the person to take away that opportunity for somebody to change their life. And I didn't have a choice because it wasn't about me. I had to let go of whatever limiting beliefs I had, whatever fears I had, because there were other people that were out there that needed me. And I think this is one of the core frames. Good salespeople and good coaches get over their own shit because they let go of whatever fears they have because they realize there is somebody out there on the other side of that Zoom call, on the other side of that phone that needs you to show the fuck up right now. And if you do that, you show up with strength, you show up with conviction, you show up with belief that you can help them because they need you to believe in it. They need to borrow your belief. And if you don't have the belief, they're not borrowing shit and they're not changing their life.
So the frame is really about how you show up for them.
100%.
All the work that you do right up until you say, hey, my name is Xander on the call.
It takes getting over all your fears and limiting beliefs around sales. It's your beliefs around yourself, around your program. It's a mindset and it's a way of living, right? And the stronger your frame in your beliefs and your conviction to help people, the more lives you're going to change.
I do think it's hard when you're first getting started to kind of believe that.
100%. We had a client of ours, Kate, who told me, like, she's a very successful multi-million-dollar coach now. And when she said, we were at one of our events where we have all our $500,000 and $1 million earners come by. And I asked them, like, you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your level of belief and conviction in yourself and what you do? And every single one of them's at a 10 out of 10 at this point. And I remember Kate saying, Yeah, but Xander, it wasn't always a 10 out of 10. When I first started, it was probably a 5 or a 6. I was like, oh, really? And Kate's like so confident, right? She was like, yeah, it was probably a 5 or a 6. I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, how did you get there? She said, honestly, I borrowed belief from you, from my mentors, from this community. When you're first starting, you're not going to be a 10 out of 10. Yeah. But you need to surround yourself with other people that believe in you more than you believe in yourself so you can borrow that belief.
I'm thinking back to when I was doing it. It's like really a lot of it came from me just doing the thing and then sharing what I've learned. But, which is great. It's a great way to sort of build your confidence, build your belief. There's a downside to that because if you feel like you have to be perfect to be able to deliver to clients, like you have to be, the most well-adjusted person to be a good life coach. Like that's not necessarily
you're going to hold
case.
Yourself back. Yeah.
Having those sort of practices to build that frame and to sort of maintain it, I think that's an amazing way to approach it. I mean, this is why you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, right?
You're not supposed to tell people that, Jay.
Well, I got a message from you at 3 o'clock this morning.
You definitely did.
But I mean, that's it. It's just like you do that. Partially it's because like you have this practice to get into that energy because it doesn't just happen.
100%. I spend, I legitimately spend probably somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes every single day managing and creating my state because it's not an option for me at this point. With a team of 20 to 25 people and 150 to 200 plus clients, like it's not an option for me to show up at a 7. It's also a lot more fun when you get to show up a 10 out of 10 every single day.
Exactly. And you do all these fun things and then, fun, cold plunge and, running up
fun is a very
stairs
debatable term. Yeah.
It's like you do these hard things to recognize that like, okay, yeah, I can get through this stuff. I can kind of show up the way I want to show up. And then you do show up for people that way. That's interesting. We've talked about frame quite a few times. I've never really broken it down that way. It really just comes down to your sort of level of confidence and what you do to sort of build that so that when you're showing up for clients, you can bring that to them.
100%. Because that's what they need. And again, this kind of goes back to like sales, coaching, and leadership are all the same thing. Like if you have really strong confidence and conviction, you're going to be a great coach. You're also going to be a great salesperson, and you're going to be a phenomenal leader. Without that confidence and conviction, none of those three will work.
Should we rename this to confidence?
Maybe.
It's too many syllables. We'll keep frame. All right. Well, this wraps up our discussion on the sales part of this. The next podcast, we're going to be talking about the delivery. And so if you need help with your coaching business, if you want someone to show up as a 10 out of 10 for you, so that you can show up as a 10 out of 10 for your clients, then click the link below, fill out an application, see if it's a good fit. And we'll see you in the next one.